They say the world is shaped by those who hold the pen, the sword, and the law. But what if history is also shaped by those who learn to endure? This is the story of two women, Maryam and Layla, whose lives, at first separate, are braided together by love, loss, survival, and the relentless politics of a changing Afghanistan. Over 40 years, through coups, invasions, and the weight of private violence, these women teach us something urgent. Courage is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, sustained, and stubborn, and sometimes it changes everything. Maryam is 5 years old when she first learns the word harami, bastard, a word her mother spits out like venom. Their small mud kolba stands isolated on the outskirts of Herat, surrounded by tall grass and a stream that hums through the valley. Nana, her mother, is bitter and sharp-tongued, a woman whose life has been shaped by betrayal. She tells Maryam again and again that she should never forget who she is, that she must learn to endure. Jalil, her father, is everything Nana is not, charming, warm, and well-dressed. He visits every Thursday, bearing gifts and smiles. For Maryam, he is the only world outside the kolba. But to Nana, he is the man who ruined her life. One day, Maryam accidentally breaks her mother's cherished porcelain bowl, a relic of her few happy memories. In the storm that follows, Nana's rage and grief pour out. She calls Maryam the cause of all her misfortune, and for the first time, Maryam feels the deep, unspoken shame of being a child born out of wedlock. Life in the kolba is simple but heavy with silence. Maryam spends her days grinding wheat, fetching water, and waiting for Jalil's visits. Nana's bitterness never rests. She recounts how Jalil's family cast her out when she became pregnant and how he built her this shack far from his home to keep her hidden. Yet, despite her mother's warnings, Maryam idolizes Jalil. She listens to his stories about Herat, the cinemas, the grand streets, and the places she longs to see. In Jalil's presence, she feels seen. In his absence, she feels invisible. Her only other comfort comes from Mullah Faisala, an old, gentle cleric who visits weekly to teach her prayers and reading. He tells her stories of the Prophet's patience and reminds her that God forgives all who seek mercy. His kindness is a small flame in her dim world. He becomes the only adult besides Jalil who speaks to her with tenderness. Every Thursday, Maryam waits by the window for Jalil's car to appear on the dirt road. He brings her gifts, a box of crayons, a small mirror, sweets from the city, and tells her tales that make Herat sound magical. To Maryam, he represents love, possibility, and the world beyond her mother's bitterness. But Nana's voice always intrudes. He's ashamed of you, Maryam. You are a burden he hides from everyone. Maryam tries not to believe her, but Nana's words linger. In 1974, Maryam turns 15. Jalil promises to take her to a cinema to watch a new cartoon film. She dreams about it for days, planning her dress and memorizing every detail of the outing. But Nana forbids it. She warns Maryam that men like Jalil break promises, and that she will be abandoned if she goes. Maryam, hurt and defiant, decides to go anyway. Early one morning, she sets out alone for Herat, walking for hours to reach her father's house. When she arrives, Jalil's grand house looms before her, tall and intimidating. She knocks, expecting his warm smile, but no one opens the gate. She waits all day, calling his name, refusing to leave. As night falls, a servant finally tells her that Jalil will not see her. Maryam spends the night on the cold street outside, clutching her hope like a fading candle. By morning, she feels the sting of humiliation and betrayal more deeply than she's ever known. The next day, Jalil's driver takes her back to the kolba. But something terrible has happened. Nana, believing Maryam abandoned her, has taken her own life. The image of her mother's body, hanging from a tree, will haunt Maryam forever. Guilt consumes her. She blames herself for her mother's death, for wanting more than what she was given. When Jalil tries to comfort her, she turns away, her heart broken beyond repair. Maryam is taken into Jalil's home, but she is not welcomed. His wives and legitimate children treat her with disdain, speaking of her as though she is a stain on their family name. The luxury of the house feels cold and alien. Maryam realizes she does not belong here either. Jalil, full of guilt, avoids her eyes. She learns quickly that her father's love has limits, and that Nana was right. She is an unwanted reminder of his mistakes. A few weeks pass in quiet tension. Mariam watches the household from the shadows, learning that even wealth cannot hide cruelty. Jalil's wives decide that Mariam must be married off. She is told, not asked, that her future husband will be Rashid, a shoemaker from Kabul. Jalil's silence confirms her worst fear: he will not fight for her. She begs him not to send her away, but her pleas fall on deaf ears. The decision is final. The wedding is swift and joyless. Mariam, wearing borrowed clothes, feels as though she is being traded away. Jalil cannot meet her eyes. Rashid, much older and imposing, seems polite at first, offering small reassurances. But beneath his courtesy lies something unreadable. Mariam rides with him to Kabul, leaving behind the only world she's ever known. Her life, once small but familiar, becomes uncertain and vast, like a road that stretches endlessly ahead, offering no way back. Kabul dazzles and overwhelms Mariam. The city buzzes with life, vendors shouting in the markets, buses rumbling past, the smell of fried onions and diesel in the air. Rashid's house, though modest, feels strange and foreign. He shows her new room, the kitchen, and the small courtyard. He is attentive, almost gentle, telling her she is safe now and that her duty is to be a good wife. Mariam, shy and uncertain, tries to adapt. For the first time, she feels part of something larger, yet deep down she senses the imbalance between them. Days turn into weeks. Mariam learns to cook, clean, and care for Rashid's household. He sets strict expectations. He disapproves of her talking to neighbors, insists she wear a burqa when outside, and monitors everything she does. At first, Mariam complies out of politeness and fear. She wants to please him, to prove she can be the good wife he wants. Rashid's moments of kindness, buying her gifts, taking her on short walks, offer glimpses of tenderness. But there's also a flicker of control in his tone, a quiet demand for obedience. When Mariam becomes pregnant, hope blooms inside her. She dreams of holding a baby who will finally love her without condition. Rashid, too, is excited. He builds a crib and talks about sons. Mariam imagines this child binding them together, giving her purpose. But the dream shatters when she loses the baby. Rashid's reaction is not grief but disappointment. His warmth fades, replaced by a cold indifference that seeps into every corner of the house. Mariam suffers miscarriage after miscarriage. Each one chips away at her spirit. Rashid's kindness disappears entirely. He becomes irritable, resentful, cruel. He blames her body for failing him. Mariam learns that silence is safer than protest. The walls of their home close in, and Kabul, once a city of promise, becomes a cage. Outside, the country trembles under political unrest. Revolts and coups ripple through Afghanistan, but inside the house, the real battle is between husband and wife. As years pass, Mariam ages beyond her years. Rashid's temper worsens. He insults her, isolates her, and eventually beats her for trivial reasons. She hides bruises beneath her sleeves, hides tears in her prayers. Yet through it all, she remembers her mother's words: endure. It becomes her survival code. Kabul changes, new leaders, new slogans, but Mariam's world remains one of quiet suffering and endurance. By the late 1980s, war erupts in the streets of Kabul. The Soviet occupation brings chaos. Rockets fall, people vanish. Rashid grows more paranoid and bitter, blaming the world for his misfortunes. Mariam watches neighbors flee, shops close, and families starve. Amid this turmoil, she feels invisible, a ghost inside a city at war. And then, the story of another girl begins to take shape. Layla, a bright young girl who lives just down the street. Her laughter carries across the walls, reminding Mariam of what hope used to sound like. Layla's presence becomes a faint light in Mariam's dim existence, a foreshadowing of how two separate lives will soon collide in ways neither could imagine. The sound of rockets becomes a part of daily life in Kabul. Layla, now a teenager, still clings to normalcy, to school, to laughter, and to her secret love for Tariq, the boy next door who lost a leg to a landmine but never his spirit. Their bond grows stronger even as the war inches closer. Layla's father, Bobby, encourages her to study and dream beyond Kabul. Her mother, once lively, has withdrawn into grief for her two sons lost to the war. Yet through all the chaos, Layla feels a fragile thread of hope, a belief that love and learning can still exist amid destruction. Then one night, that fragile thread snaps. A rocket crashes into their home. The explosion tears through the walls, burying Layla in rubble and dust. When she wakes, everything she has ever known is gone. Her parents killed instantly, her home reduced to ash. Layla, wounded and alone, is pulled from the debris by Rashid and Mariam. Unconscious and broken, she is carried into their home, the same home where Mariam has suffered in silence for years. When Layla wakes, she finds herself in an unfamiliar bed, bandaged and weak. Mariam tends to her with quiet caution, suspicious but not unkind. Rashid, however, hovers with unnerving eagerness. He brings her food, promises safety, and speaks with forced gentleness. Mariam sees through his facade, the same charm that once fooled her. But Layla, grieving and desperate, clings to any sign of kindness. She learns that Tariq's family fled Kabul and that he may be dead. The news crushes her completely. As Layla recovers, Rashid's motives become clear. He proposes marriage, claiming it is the only way to protect her from shame and poverty. Mariam is outraged. She recognizes the manipulation, the way Rashid cloaks control in the guise of care. But Layla faces an impossible choice. She is pregnant with Tariq's child, a secret she cannot reveal. To survive, she agrees to marry Rashid. In that moment, her fate becomes bound to Mariam's. The wedding is quiet, joyless. Layla, barely out of girlhood, sits beside Rashid, whose hands look enormous and alien against hers. Mariam watches the ceremony in silence, a storm of anger and pity swirling inside her. That night, the sound of Rashid's door closing echoes like a verdict through the house. The next morning, Layla begins her new life as the second wife, a title that feels like a punishment. The house becomes a battlefield of unspoken resentment. Mariam feels displaced, betrayed by Layla's presence. Layla, for her part, struggles to navigate the strange household where kindness and cruelty are indistinguishable. She tries to find small ways to thank Mariam, but every gesture seems to deepen the distance between them. Time passes, and the rhythm of the house settles into uneasy patterns. Rashid grows more controlling, his temper quick to flare. Mariam and Layla's interactions are clipped and careful, two women circling each other with unspoken pain. Then, Layla gives birth to her daughter, Aziza. The baby is light, warmth, and life in a home heavy with shadows. Layla's secret, that Tariq is Aziza's father, becomes her silent burden, her hidden act of defiance. Mariam watches as Layla cradles her child with love she has never known herself. Slowly, the edges of her resentment begin to soften. Rashid's disappointment at the birth of a girl is immediate and cruel. He had hoped for a son, someone to carry his name. He barely looks at Aziza, and his coldness hardens Layla's resolve to protect her daughter at all costs. Mariam, drawn by the baby's innocence, begins to help, rocking her, feeding her, soothing her cries. The bond between the two women grows in secret, stitched together through shared moments of tenderness and endurance. For the first time in decades, Mariam feels something close to belonging. Outside, Kabul falls under the rule of the Taliban. Inside, Rashid grows bolder in his cruelty. He controls every aspect of their lives, how they dress, when they speak, what they eat. He locks them in during the day and beats them for imagined offenses. Layla and Mariam, once wary of each other, find strength in unity. They share whispered stories, quiet laughter, and most dangerously, dreams of escape. The sisterhood that grows between them becomes their rebellion. In the midst of fear, there are small moments of joy. Aziza's laughter fills the house, and Mariam, watching her toddle through the courtyard, feels a kind of redemption. Layla sees Mariam not as a rival but as a motherly presence, someone who has carried pain with dignity. They become each other's refuge. Together, they begin to imagine a life beyond Rashid's walls, a place where Aziza could grow up free. The Taliban's rule tightens its grip. Schools for girls are shut down, women are forbidden from walking alone, and public punishments become common. Layla watches her city transform into a prison. Rashid, empowered by these laws, treats his wives with even greater cruelty. The violence inside their home mirrors the tyranny outside. Yet through this suffocating oppression, Mariam and Layla cling to small acts of defiance, reading hidden books, whispering lullabies, and caring for each other in a world that demands silence. As food becomes scarce, Rashid's cruelty deepens. He rations meals, blaming Mariam and Layla for every hardship. One day, when he catches them laughing together, his rage explodes. He beats them both viciously, his authority challenged by their unity. Afterward, Mariam and Layla sit together in silence, their faces swollen, their hearts bound by something unbreakable. In the ashes of pain, love is born, fierce, maternal, and protective. Soon, Layla gives birth to a boy, Zalmai. Rashid is ecstatic, suddenly soft and indulgent, doting on the child. But his affection for Zalmai only widens the chasm between him and the women. He becomes possessive and arrogant, using the boy as a symbol of power. Mariam and Layla endure in silence, focusing their energy on the children, shielding them as best they can from the storm. The bond between Mariam and Layla becomes their lifeline. They share whispered prayers at night, comfort one another after Rashid's rages, and cling to the fragile hope that one day they might be free. They begin saving small amounts of money, planning to flee the city with the children. Every glance, every shared secret becomes an act of rebellion against the man who seeks to own them. Their first attempt to escape is desperate and doomed. They board a bus under false pretenses, hearts pounding with hope, but they are betrayed by a guard who suspects them. Rashid retrieves them from the station and, in a fury, locks them in a dark room without food or water for days. When he finally releases them, they are weak but alive. Mariam looks at Layla and says quietly, "We will try again." The city grows harsher. Bombings, famine, and public executions become routine. Aziza's laughter fades into hunger and fear. Rashid forces her into an orphanage when they can no longer afford food. Layla visits her daughter in secret, walking through streets patrolled by soldiers, risking beatings and imprisonment just to see her smile. Mariam, watching her return each day exhausted but determined, realizes she has found in Layla a kind of daughter, one worth everything. One evening, a knock on the door changes everything. Standing there is Tariq alive. The world tilts. Layla can hardly breathe. They talk in whispers, tears and disbelief flowing freely. Tariq tells her how he escaped, how he searched for her. Their reunion is tender but dangerous. When he leaves, Rashid's young son, Zalmai, witnesses their meeting and tells his father. Rashid's fury is apocalyptic. He accuses Layla of betrayal, his rage erupting in violence more brutal than ever before. He tries to strangle her, his hands crushing her throat as Zalmai screams. Mariam rushes in, seizes a shovel, and strikes Rashid. The blow kills him. The silence that follows is vast, broken only by the sound of their breathing. Mariam understands instantly what must be done. In the aftermath, Mariam takes charge. She calms Layla, gathers her and the children, and tells them to leave Kabul immediately with Tariq. When Layla protests, Mariam insists. "For you, my daughter," she says. It is the first time she has used the word. Layla realizes the depth of Mariam's love and the cost of it. Mariam surrenders to the authorities, accepting her fate without resistance. She is imprisoned, questioned, condemned. In her cell, she thinks of Layla and the children, safely on their way out of the city. She feels no fear, only peace. When the execution day arrives, she stands tall beneath the sun, her heart full. For the first time in her life, she chooses her own destiny. Layla and Tariq settle in Pakistan with their children, trying to rebuild a life out of the ruins of their past. Yet Kabul calls to Layla, the city of her birth, of love and loss. After the fall of the Taliban, they return. The streets are scarred, the buildings shattered, but there is life again. Layla visits Herat to honor Mariam's memory. She stands before the place where Mariam grew up, whispering her name, feeling her presence in the wind. Layla devotes herself to rebuilding what was broken. She works in an orphanage, helping children who have lost everything, just as she once did. Aziza thrives in school, Zalmai learns to laugh again, and Tariq becomes a steady presence, proof that love can endure even the harshest winters. Every corner of their home carries traces of Mariam's memory. Layla teaches her children about the woman who saved their lives. Years pass, and Kabul begins to heal. Streets fill again with music, girls return to classrooms, and markets hum with color and sound. Yet the scars remain, in the walls, in the people, and in Layla's heart. She often dreams of Maryam's laughter, of her calm strength. Whenever she feels lost, she remembers Maryam's final words, endure. In the final moments, Layla stands in her home as the evening light floods through the windows. She feels both the weight and the wonder of all that has passed. Her children call her name, their voices echoing through rooms once silent. As she turns toward them, she feels Maryam beside her, not as a ghost, but as a presence, a blessing. In a land once torn apart by war and cruelty, Layla's life becomes a living memory of love, sacrifice, and hope, the quiet defiance of 1,000 splendid sons. 1,000 Splendid Sons is not just the story of two women, it is the story of a nation's pain, of mothers and daughters bound by endurance, and of love surviving in the ruins of cruelty. Through Maryam and Layla, Khaled Hosseini reveals how oppression and loss can forge unbreakable strength. Maryam's sacrifice becomes a symbol of redemption, Layla's perseverance, a beacon of renewal. Together, they embody Afghanistan's resilience, the quiet, stubborn light that refuses to die out, even under the darkest skies. In the end, the novel reminds us that courage is not always loud. Sometimes, it is found in the way someone keeps living, loving, and hoping despite everything. Like the 1,000 splendid suns that light up the city of Kabul, their spirit endures, undimmed and eternal.